Hello and welcome to the Unnamed Automotive Podcast. My name is Sami Assad, and with me, as always, is my good friend and fellow automotive journalist, Benjamin Hunting. Say hi to the people, Ben.
Greetings, post-Halloween listeners.
Greetings to everyone. If this is the first time you're listening to our podcast, thank you. Thank you for trying something new. Ben and I really appreciate it, and I'm going to reiterate, this podcast that you're listening to features not one, but two automotive journalists. But more important than that, we're really good friends. Right, Ben?
Friendship is important.
I think it's the most important element of any podcast.
Pass on that.
I think podcasts where people don't have a friendly banter, that's a problem, man.
What if it was podcasts between two robots and they were discussing like exclusively robot issues and neither of the robots have been programmed to understand friendship?
Yeah, I don't think that would work. I think
you don't think you'd be interested in that?
No, I think that wouldn't work. Actually, I remember there being a whole thing about a pair of
This is about to get real weird, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It was, I think they were like Google Homes that they programmed to talk to one another in a way, and they just made no conversation. I can't remember what it was for. It was like a knockoff on Waiting for Godot in a way.
Now I'm just sad.
Anyways,
thinking about consumer products trying to connect with other consumer products.
That's what they're trying to do, the Internet of Things.
Imagine if all the shoes in your closet were trying to be friendly with each other instead of just, unable to make a connection with other shoes.
No, but shoes, they don't need to have another connection. They've already got a built-in connection with the other pair, the other side.
Shoes, at least they have soles, Sammy.
Yes, I suppose that's true. That is the very important message that Ben wants us to all take away from today's episode. But I want you to think about some of the publications that he's recently written for. Ben, plug them.
Okay, you can find my work at Motor Trend, at Haggerty, at driving.ca, and in the National Post newspaper, it seems.
And you can find my work at driving.ca and autotrader.ca. Ben, we've got some cars to talk about this week. I think cars that we've never spoken about before, which is one of my favorite types of episode. This is like the inaugural reviews of certain vehicles.
Inaugural reviews. I guess that's one way of putting it. For everything, there is a first time. And for me, that became the first time with a Lucid product over the past week. I drove the 2025 Lucid Air Touring. Sammy, this is an unusual vehicle because guess what? It's a sedan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very important to talk about. Yeah.
Not an SUV. Lucid, like Genesis many years ago, first came to market with a four-door car instead of a sport utility vehicle like everyone else. And Genesis was able to overcome that and make an impact regardless of the fact that the segment they were targeting was less popular than it had once been. Lucid is, I think, a bit of a special case because they're a boutique automaker. This is a company that isn't really aimed at volume. They're trying to sell a high-end electric vehicle, and they're relying on the tech specs of the car, the styling of the vehicle, and the overall experience, I think, more than the segment. Now, that being said, there is an SUV that has finally made it to the market, the Lucid Gravity. I have not driven it. I've ran into them for the first time at the dealership where I picked up this car. They just arrived. And that will, I think, give Lucid the potential to maybe do a bit more volume than they're used to. But I think it's really fascinating that they led with the Air. The Air is, I mean, I've never really questioned the name Air. Sammy, what do you think of that name?
Well, the more you keep saying the Air, and I drove the Air, the less I'm like, I'm getting it.
Do you think Nike sued them?
No, I don't think so.
Do you think Michael Jordan sued them? Do you think Michael Jordan knows the Lucid Air exists?
I bet you he got a free one.
Do you think that's enough to he's a competitive guy.
I think he'll take a free Lucid Air.
He's currently suing NASCAR.
Yeah, I know that. I remember that.
So yeah. Are you in or are you out on this name?
On the name?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm in.
Okay.
As long as you don't have to say it, it's great. It's a great name.
Follow-up question. Did you know that they put a bear sticker on the front fender?
When you say bear, what do you mean?
I mean,
what does that mean? Is that a problem to ask? What do you mean?
I mean the large, hairy, carnivorous, omnivorous mammal.
They put a sticker on your car, or
on each fender? It has because they're from California, right? So they have the bear as their symbol. It's like the state animal of California.
I'm looking this up. I don't believe you. I think you got vandalized.
No, bare vandalism, perfectly symmetrical on both fenders. I mean, it's not impossible, but it seems unlikely.
Is this something they started doing recently? I'm looking at pictures of them. I can't find this
Sammy,
bear anywhere.
I can't tell you. Maybe it's for the Canadian market. All I can say is my car was a beautiful burgundy with two bears. One on one side, one on the other. As someone who previously owned a Subaru that had a Sasquatch on it, a Sasquatch badge, I can get behind this. So,
I want to talk about this design. This design is actually kind of interesting to me because from what I understand, the designer of the Air, don't laugh. The designer of the Air is a dude named Derek Jenkins, who was behind the not FD, what's it called?
I don't know what you're talking about. You're going to give me
the
more
fourth
than that.
gen ND. Sorry, ND
because
Mazda
the FD
MX-5
is a vehicle.
Yes, I know. And I think that's a really cool looking car, with the exception of the Targa top version of it.
And it's way bigger though than the Lucid.
It's significantly larger.
This is the Lucid is enormous. This is a full size sedan. It's roughly, Sam and I were crunching some numbers before the podcast because there's nothing we'd love more than doing that. And it's
I really love getting the numbers before the podcast and then
immediately forgetting them
and immediately closing all my tabs.
Tabula rasa for Sammy every podcast.
I should have more physical papers when I'm doing this. Actually,
no, I think that you do. I think you'd be buried under an avalanche of notes. This vehicle is within a 1/2 inch wheelbase of an i5,
a BMW i5,
which is BMW's also EV. They are also very close in price. The Lucid Air starts at $70,000 US. The model I drove was the Touring. The difference is 2 motors, so you get all-wheel drive and considerably more horsepower. You're looking at 430 horsepower in the base $70,000 version and 620 in the car that I drove. The reason I mention these 2 models is because the i5 starts around 70,000. Or sorry, the all-wheel drive version starts around 70,000. So you're paying a $9,000 premium over an i5 to get into an all-wheel drive version that has considerably more power. The i5 itself is only about 400 horsepower. That's a really big difference. Now, it's not unusual for this kind of thing to be the case. This is a company that is a startup in a lot of ways. They have to attract attention. They have to go the extra mile. Again, if we reference Genesis, very similar idea in terms of bringing more for the customer for maybe just a small amount more money or maybe a bit of a bargain. The car itself, I think, looks really good. It's hard to talk about design in a visual medium like podcasts, but it's aerodynamic without being a caricature of aerodynamics. It's not
the blob of an EQS, basically.
Exactly.
Right?
It's got personality. It's got a sloping roofline. It's got a big wide front end with a huge light that goes across it at night. I want to say these are the best headlights I've ever used on a production vehicle ever.
Wow.
Period. Point final. Fantastic headlights. Where I live, it gets real dark.
What happened? What do you mean? You need to explain what makes these. I know it's impossible to explain.
I could see down
They're
the road
bright.
a huge amount. So I'm currently
Are those high beams or low beams?
High beam, both are good, but the high beams are just amazing. And where I live, there's a ton of deer. And it's something I think about a lot now at night because the clocks just went back and it's dark all the time and everyone's sad and no one has any vitamin D. And you need these giant headlights to just kind of get through life. And I was really impressed. Really, really, really good. Anyway, back to the design of the car. It has a frunk up front. And in the back, it has a trunk, but not a traditional trunk. And I want to say that, you look at the roofline of this car and you think this would be a perfect hatchback. It's not a hatchback, unfortunately, but it has it opens almost the full width of the rear, including the taillights. So you have this huge, the lip of the trunk is very wide. It pops up and then you kind of slide things in like a parcel shelf. It's not super deep, but it's deep enough. And I thought that was a unique way to incorporate the styling they wanted and the mechanism that they wanted in the car. Continuing the styling, inside, it's somewhat simple. We've all been trained at this point to get into an electric luxury car and be overwhelmed by either the number of screens or the size of the screens.
Yeah.
In this respect, this is not what Lucid has done. They have a screen. Obviously, it's more affordable to use screens instead of buttons. That's why car companies do it, especially boutique car companies like Lucid. It's helps them a lot production wise, but they didn't really overdo it with this vehicle. There's a screen in front of the driver. It's kind of a, I don't know, rectangular shape with curved on either side. That on one side, it's divided into 3 panels. One side is controls for things like the windshield wipers, the headlights, opening up the frunk, that kind of thing, like controls that you would use on a regular basis. Mm-hmm. Directly in front of you, the segment is for showing the map or the speedometer or some combination thereof, like it's your gauge cluster. And then to the right, you have a pretty small infotainment screen, like small to the point where when I had Android Auto loaded up on it, it was a small square inside a larger square. And it doesn't run like full edge to edge. So it kind of drives home the fact that it's smaller.
And how did you feel about like the idea that this startup usually like you said, we're trained to believe that a startup, a new EV is really going to be pushing the technology as far as they can.
You got to let me finish because there's another screen I haven't talked about yet. And
that's the secret screen.
The center, secret screen. On the center console, there's a large tablet, an angled tablet. And that is where the vast majority of vehicle functions you interact with. There are some buttons for things like temperature and whatnot, from what I remember. On the steering wheel, there's some rollers for volume, for changing the cruise control speeds, for moving through media, that kind of thing. But there's really this large tablet that has all the drive modes. It has all of the vast majority of your climate control functions, all the settings for the vehicle, that kind of thing. It is not always easy to get to what you want to get to. The seat controls are completely on this screen. The steering wheel stuff is on this screen. The mirrors are on this screen.
No thanks.
It saves them to a profile. I had the profile, most of the time the profile loaded no problem. At one time I got in the car and it felt like it loaded a different profile and I had to reload everything. Now, I'm not going to ding the car for this because when you have a media vehicle, sometimes they have like a universal profile and it's used across multiple cars and you get into it and someone has made a change somewhere else and it propagates to your car. This happens to me a lot in Toyotas where the entire language of the car switches to French.
Oh, right.
Even though I've already had it in English. And I think it's a login issue. So I can't say for certain that that's what's happening with this. But I will say that some of the menus are a little too buried for things that I would want to use on a regular basis. And that was somewhat frustrating. But going back to the styling inside the Lucid Air, it does feel restrained. Materials, they look good, but there's not a lot of detail. It is a lot of smooth surfaces. It is a lot of curves. It is, I guess, austere would maybe be the word.
Okay.
It didn't feel plush. I am currently driving a Genesis GV70 electric whose interior is insane. It just looks fantastic from every angle, and it costs much less than the Lucid Air. That was surprising to me.
That is huge. That's a really big, that's important to point out. So where are they making their impact? You know, like a new company needs to come in and try to differentiate itself from the traditional and legacy automakers. How are they doing that?
Well,
because these things don't sound like negatives, but they don't sound like positives either.
I will get to that in 1 second. I want to wrap up the infotainment thing quickly.
Okay.
There's one other aspect of the experience of getting in and out of a Lucid that I didn't really jive with. And that's the fact that as you approach the car, it turns on. So once you get in the car, let's say you were listening to a podcast, it's already playing.
You've already missed the first 10 seconds.
Yeah, at least. Because it turns on you're from a fair distance away. I could not figure out how to change that setting inside the car. Like if there was a way where I could just be like, don't turn the car on until the door is closed or something like that. I couldn't make that happen. Maybe it's possible. The flip side of that is it automatically turns off as well. But on a lot of cars that do the automatic on off thing, like all the GM Ultium EVs, when you close the door, it turns off.
Yeah,
the vehicle is done. With this car, you close the door and you have to keep walking away from it. And at some point it turns off. So again, you're losing like another 30 seconds, 45 seconds of whatever you were listening to. unless you go in your pocket and push the actual lock button. So again, a little bit frustrating, a little bit weird.
I've got to go back in my notes, but I feel like BMWs, not their EVs, but even their like gas cars, you had to like turn them off twice. You had to hit the power button twice sometimes to make sure that they're really off.
But that's a car that has a power button. This doesn't have one. So you're really locked into what they're asking you to do. So to answer your question about how they set themselves apart, there's many different versions of the Lucid Air. There's some that have like 1200 horsepower, 800 horsepower. Mine had 600. There's a 400 horsepower one. The way they're separating themselves is with performance. They advertise some pretty crazy numbers, like 0 to 60 of 3 seconds. Wow. Mine was 3.4 seconds, and I believe it. It was extremely quick. But when you're looking at range, they also advertise really high range, 512 miles of driving. 431 was the number that's attached to mine. That's a pretty impressive number.
That's really good.
In the real world, I did not see that. So when I got into the car, it showed me with a full battery, 578 kilometers of range, which is 359 miles. Now that is 50 miles less. Actually, that's 70 miles less than the advertised 431. Okay. I want to say it was cold when I drove the car, but not freezing cold. Again, kind of like we were talking about the week before. I was around like, I don't know, 40 degrees, between 40 and 50 degrees Fahrenheit. So like between 10 and 20 degrees, or 10 and 15 degrees, I would say, Celsius. There should be some impact, but not a large impact on range. Then when I looked at my actual performance, when I looked at the actual like efficiency numbers, it was showing me 4 kilometers per kilowatt hour, which is like roughly 2 point something miles per kilowatt hour. Yeah. With a 92 kilowatt hour battery, that should work out to 368 kilometers, which is only 228 miles.
Yeah, not very good at all.
So I don't know what's going on here. I was almost always, there are 3 driving modes with different levels of performance. I was almost always driving in smooth mode, which is the one that... Is that
considered the eco mode?
Yeah, that's the normal. That would be the average mode. So I wasn't romping on the accelerator all the time. I was very surprised by that because I was prepared to be blown away by the range of the Lucid, because a lot of testing has shown that the range is really, really good. So I don't know if there's something to do with the weather that particularly affects the Lucid Air. I'm assuming it has a heat pump and everything. It was just a little strange. In terms of power, it felt very, very fast. 620 horsepower. It felt like it was present and accounted for. Very quick. Is it faster than an i5 M60? I don't know. Hard to say.
Like, does it need to be? We keep asking this question every time we pick up one of these fast cars. 3 seconds, anything with a 3 or even 4 in terms of 0 to 60 sprint.
Sure. I mean, the price difference between the vehicles, the BMW is $5,000 more. I'm just trying to situate it within its competitive set. I thought the performance was great. I thought it was very comfortable. Okay. Smooth mode wasn't lying.
When you say comfortable, you mean in terms of like ride quality?
Yeah, in terms of ride quality. In terms of high performance, like this is a big car. This is not a car that you would take to a racetrack. In a corner, and particularly when braking, you notice the weight. That's true of almost every EV. I'm not really going to ding it for that. There's a couple weird things about the driving experience with regards to regenerative braking. It had multiple regen settings. Basically, there was like a one pedal setting, then there was the normal setting, and then there was off. I found the normal setting, it was tough to maintain a consistent speed. I found that it was really not too aggressive, but definitely aggressive about kicking in the regen as soon as I pulled my foot off the accelerator. So I turned the regenerative braking to off. It didn't just turn off the braking when you lift your pedal, it turned off regen when you use the brakes. Have you ever encountered an EV that did that?
No, I don't think so.
So the power meter on the gauge cluster, when you hit the brakes with the regen off, does not regenerate any power.
That's so weird.
So weird. Please change that, Lucid. I don't know. The only thing I can think of is they have a simpler controller that doesn't have multiple modes. You know, but that doesn't even make sense compared to the fact that I was given 3 mode choices, right? Like you can't put a 4th one in there where it's like brakes are always regen, just no auto regen. Like that was strange. The brakes also rumbled a bit, like not vibrating, not shaking, not feeling like they were defective, just a noise. Like there was a bit of a rumble from the front end. I don't know if it was simulated when I was braking, but I hadn't really encountered that in an EV before either.
That's really, it wasn't uncomfortable. It wasn't like disconcerting, was it? Like
no, not disconcerting, just a sound. Like it almost felt like it was on purpose. And finally, I was talking about the range earlier. If you romp on the accelerator and get on it really hard, the range drops. Like instantly. You see it drop. Yeah. That is also unusual.
Is it? I think I've seen other cars that do that, but
it was like 11 degrees out and I was doing some pulls up to speed and I lost like 30 kilometers of driving just from like a couple pulls on the highway.
Oops.
So yeah. Anyway.
Lesson learned, bud.
Lesson learned.
Okay. So but there's, again, I'm really, what about charging speeds? Did you experience any good charging out of this thing?
I only charged at home on level 2. It'll charge, this is an odd statistic. On the Lucid website, they say it takes 16 minutes to get to 320 kilometers of range or 200 miles, but it doesn't say where you're starting from.
Yeah, just that's the way it is.
That's the way it is. So I do think it charges pretty fast. I want to say it has like a 900 kilowatt electrical system. I could be wrong about that.
Okay.
Let me double check. I can get some charging information here. So it can recoup 300 miles of range in 21 minutes too, if you want. I think the charging is probably pretty quick.
Okay.
Bear in mind though, these are the same tests that showed it had the actual 410 miles of highway range, which is close to what I was seeing. I liked the car. It had a really big back seat. So the reason I mentioned that is because when I was driving it, I kept thinking Hyundai Ioniq 6 is very stylistically similar to this car.
Okay.
Like it's an outlier. It has similar performance. Like this car felt quicker, but the Ioniq is lighter. The price difference is substantial between them. Like I think what, $20,000?
Huge.
In Canada, it's like $60,000. So, then you have to consider there's an Ioniq 6N now, which closes the gap price wise, but also closes performance wise. It was really, really hard. Like interior wise, I'm not sure there's a huge difference. I'm not sure that
not just in terms of space, but in terms of like
quality.
Yeah.
I think that the Hyundais measure up really well. I think they're less overtly luxurious, but I did find that the Hyundais, the overall experience of the software and the controls was more human and just simpler and easier to use versus the Lucid. I don't know.
Yeah.
It just felt like maybe the software was holding it back a little bit. The screen size also, like the way it truncates the infotainment. Why have that giant tablet and then such a small infotainment screen? Like why not have some kind of compromise between those things? Anyway, these are nitpicky things. This is a luxury car. It has that crazy advertised range. It has the crazy speed. It's aimed at a different customer. I was trying to decide if this is something that I would spend extra money on. I'm not sure that I would. I feel like the human factors in the car are just different enough from what people are used to with other EVs that it might be off-putting unless that's the reason you're buying it.
Yeah. So that's my major thought process on this car based on what you've described. It's different for the sake of being different. And is that enough when establishing a new brand, a new automaker?
I think that's going to be fine for a certain number of buyers, right? They're going to want to be different. But how do you scale that?
Exactly. And not only how do you scale that, it just feels so inadequate, not enough. You got to really deliver when it comes to something that the competition is not doing. And right now, the EV market
comfort and speed is there, right? But I think speed is, like you said, who cares?
Yeah, I said that.
It's not a reason past a certain point. It's no longer a reason to consider a brand.
Yeah,
because you will not be taking that EV to a performance environment. And in any case, this vehicle isn't designed to go in a performance environment. It's too large for that. So it's bragging rights at a certain point. And eventually the people in your circle will be tired of hearing your brands.
Exactly.
And then you're going to be left with the car. And if you like the car, that's fine. There's a lot to like here. I'm not saying I dislike it. I think I was expecting a lot, and what I got was good, but it didn't really elevate for me, aside from the speed, the smoothness, and I do like the styling. So those are the three standout aspects. The pricing in the US is not that crazy. It's like 70 grand to 79. In Canada, it starts at like 112. At 112, you have a lot of options.
That's right.
You know, you can choose a lot of different cars, and this is one of them. I'm not going to recommend or disrecommend it. I mean, drive it and see what you think. Be open-minded about it. Don't go in with expectations like I did, and maybe you'll be more attuned to what it has to offer.
There's one more thing that I want to point out. I don't think there's anything to say about this, but I need to mention this because it gives me a little bit of like it gives me a little bit of like, it doesn't make me feel good.
Okay.
But the majority shareholder of Lucid is the public investment fund from Saudi Arabia, with 58% ownership. And I mean, there's been a lot of criticism with this investment fund and the Saudi government, which, you know, controls that investment fund. I'm curious to see what the plans are for this. I don't think they invest in things that they think will not have a success of any kind, but there's clearly something going on there, and they're planning to have an international manufacturing plant in Saudi Arabia, and we'll see if that turns up. But
I was not aware of any of that. So this would be Saudi Arabia's first foray into like a domestic auto industry.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, there's always a criticism on when it comes to the Saudi.
There are certainly ethical concerns surrounding that regime. I'm not sure if I've talked about this on the podcast, but I have been offered to travel to events in Saudi Arabia and be paid by the Saudi government to attend these events
that's just not the way we do things.
Yeah, in an automotive capacity, and I have said no.
Yeah.
And it was easy to say no. So I was not aware of any of this about the Lucid's financial backing. Is that recent? Did they buy out the original founders, or how did that work?
It happened in 2022.
Okay, so not that recent.
So it's just something that has been on my mind ever since that announcement. I do think it's cool to see a Middle Eastern EV manufacturing pioneer, I suppose, or someone working on that. But on the other hand, the Saudi, the government, and the PIF, the Public Investment Fund, has been caught in some really hot situations that I'm not in love with. I don't love.
I mean, if we're specifically talking, Sami and I are both journalists, and this is a regime that has executed people for being journalists. Yes. So that's a very real thing. Yeah.
So I just wanted to bring that up. It's an interesting, tangled part of Lucid. The other investment groups are also, they're not that great to talk about either, but I just wanted to point that out as a startup. They do have maybe a little bit of money in their back pocket from a major government like that.
But
if
we are talking about startups with money, though, it doesn't always guarantee success, because if you look at a company like Scout, which is essentially being bankrolled by Volkswagen, which has tons of money. We don't have any products. Like, there's nothing, right? That hasn't happened yet. We've seen concepts. We haven't seen actual vehicles. And there's
not just Scout, Rivian too, right?
Rivian has actual products, though. Like, what I'm saying is there's no guarantee of success just because you have large financial backing. So
that's true. Yeah.
In the EV world, you never know what's going to happen. Sami and I often joke that what we really should be doing is creating an EV company, getting tons of financing from the Canadian government, and then just going bankrupt.
Yeah, the Fisker way of
the Fisker or the Northvolt model. This seems to be like a perfect way to essentially get tons of tax-free cash and then disappear into the night.
And then walk away. Exactly. We don't have an exit plan yet. We've just talked about the end, the beginning of it, but not the exit.
EVs are like the Ponzi scheme of the automotive world, it seems sometimes. But
the other thing is,
I probably shouldn't have recorded any of that.
I think the other thing is, you sent me a note from TechCrunch in which they've announced that there's a big change at the executive level at Lucid. They still don't have a permanent CEO, which is another weird, sort of trait of this company.
Yeah.
And
I mean, it's
again,
worrisome, right? Like
it makes me think about its future in a kind of critical sense.
Yeah. It's who knows what will happen. It's very, very difficult to run a car company. I think Lucid is doing a better job than most startups. I mean, I think Lucid and Rivian are probably on par in terms of the amount of pop culture penetration they've had.
Yeah,
people know they exist, right? Like,
that's a great point. Yeah,
and that's a half the battle. People can't buy a car if they don't know where to get it. So,
and
like,
I mean, Tesla, they overcame the I guess, they made it work, but they also had the richest man bank.
Yeah, and they've been around for 15 years at least, right? So
yeah, it took a while.
That's a huge head start. So these companies are riding on the tail of that, and there've been other, like, for every Lucid there's a Fisker, or maybe even 3 Fiskers.
That's true. I still see some Fiskers on the road, and I just I want to salute them. Like, good for you, for trying to not kill that car right now.
But
right?
You imagine like the fear that person is
exactly. If anything happens,
I
scuffed a wheel. My fender is dented or scratched. Like, what happens now?
The infotainment screen goes black. Like, you're just done.
There's this whole thing about the events. I mean, I'm always getting like notes from the subreddit. Like, I think the events get messed up or something.
How are you on a subreddit about Fisker?
It's interesting.
That's like being on a subreddit about car accidents. Send me those photos, please.
But it's interesting. Speaking of like weird things that I was gonna. I mean, I think we should save this for next week's episode. But did you hear like Toyota brought back the Scion name at SEMA this year?
Yeah, but for like a side by side.
Yeah. Anyways, I think we'll talk about auto shows next week, because I don't have a car to talk about next week. But this week,
wow, way to let people down. People are tuning out right now.
No. But this week I do have a car, a really important car for me to drive. It's called the 2025 Acura ADX.
Why is this important for you to drive?
I'm going to tell you exactly why it's important for me to drive, because it's based on one of my least favorite vehicles in the whole world, the Honda HR-V.
You hate that vehicle.
I really don't like that car at all. However,
Sami has one tattoo.
Yeah.
And it's the letters HR-V with like the Ghostbusters thing around it, like with the X, the half X.
That's right.
Who are you going to call?
The HR-V I've always criticized as saying it does not meet the potential for a subcompact crossover built by Honda. The Acura ADX takes a slightly different approach. It's meant to be the sort of SUV or crossover variant of the Acura Integra, in that it has more power than the HR-V ever did, and it features an optional all-wheel drive system, and looks a little bit sharper inside and out.
Optional all-wheel drive.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to get all-wheel drive. You can get a front-wheel drive version.
Does that extra power paper over the horrible CVT?
No, the CVT is probably the least. This car, when you accelerate in it,
how bad can the CVT be? If
it's not, it is the saddest sounding car I have driven in a long time.
Make the sound.
Oh man, like that.
That makes me think of like Milhouse's dad on Simpsons, like having a romantic encounter.
No, it sounds like. Is it Tina in
Tina Belcher?
In Bob's Burger?
Tina Belcher, yeah, some erotic friend fiction.
So it is one of these. The first time I drove it, I was like, oh wow, they need to make sure that people don't hear that. But otherwise, it is a totally functional vehicle that is easy to drive. It is large enough. It's quick enough. It has enough drive modes that have good variability in it.
You love drive modes.
Mainly because the CVT can just, like, when you put it in the sport mode, the CVT can just decide that all of its power, like, it'll just stay in the power band at like 3,000 RPM. It sounds awful, but the car's going. And that's great. But at 190 horsepower, you got to make do with what you've got. And that's how they do it. Exterior it looks like a mini RDX. I'm pretty comfortable with saying the exterior of the ADX is among its highlights. The interior is also fairly nice. It's not nearly as high-end feeling as other Acura vehicles, especially mentioning the RDX, which can sometimes be had with like this really cool, like, I think it's kind of like a suede or an ultra suede. What do they call it now? Alcantara.
Think about the little baby Alcantaras that were sacrificed for that interior.
Yeah, it doesn't have anything like that. The steering wheel is nice. It's reasonably like chunky feeling. It reminds me of other Acuras. You know, like there's parts of this car that make it seem like it was not just a badge on top of an HRV, and I'm glad that is what it needed to be.
But conceptually, is this something that's just filling white space?
Yeah, I mean Acura needed a subcompact crossover badly. Is it enough to make up for how long they've not had one? I don't know.
Do they really need one badly? Like, does the Lexus UX really sell that many units?
They have apparently they do. I believe that the UX is getting pretty popular, and I think is marketed really well.
Okay.
And then there's also, look, I don't know if you've noticed, but I've been seeing a lot of these Buick. What are they called? Vistas?
Yeah, Vista's fantastic.
Yeah, I see a ton of these things.
Do you think it's similar to the ADX?
I don't know. I haven't been in one lately.
Well, hit me with some pricing.
The pricing is not my favorite part. In the US, it starts at 36,000 with destination.
Wow, so it's $10,000 more than the Buick?
Yeah, I guess.
Whoa.
So. I mean, I think it's bigger than a Buick. I'll be clear. I think it's bigger than a Buick. I'm just brought up the Buick because I think the ADX maybe would compete more with the other Buick, the Encore GX. Is that a still thing? Is that a thing?
I think it's still around, but it's very similar in size to the Envista. It's the Envision that's a little bit bigger.
Yeah, the Envision is too big.
Okay.
For the ADX.
So this is also like X1, X2 size.
Yeah, somewhere around X1, X2.
Q3. You
just drove a Q3 that I just drove. Yeah, I would not recommend an ADX over a Q3.
Oof.
I mean, that's
not surprising to me, but like, it really makes me wonder who this vehicle's for.
It's for somebody who wanted an Integra, but with more headroom or something.
But it's nothing like the Integra.
Yeah, it is basically. If the Integra is based on the Civic, and the HRV is also based on the Civic,
it's making my head hurt.
The ADX is the same thing, Ren. You know what I mean?
No.
It more or less is.
No, because we've established that the HRV is awful to drive, yet the Civic is really good to drive. So, like, how does that by the powers of transference? How does that work? How does this make the ADX like the Integra?
Well, no, I mean, of course, the reality with the HRV is, I think, the all-wheel drive system, the CVT, and the limited power of the powertrain really deteriorate what is going on with a pretty good chassis.
Oof.
With the Civic chassis. And then when you go to the ADX part, the upgraded power helps, like you said, paper over some things, not the CVT, which is still like ugly sounding. But as a result, the car doesn't feel as bland to drive. And I think it makes up for other deficiencies by actually looking pretty decent too.
Okay.
Top range models will cost $45,000 in the US. I drove a Canadian model, which is far too expensive for what it is. It was $55,000, which I would not recommend anyone spend $55,000 on a subcompact crossover. I think that is really hurting your budget. Like, I don't think that's a great idea.
It's still $10,000 less than the average transaction price in Canada. Just want to keep that fact out there.
Man. I don't know who has the budget to put $55,000 on a small SUV, and
look,
especially one with the groaning noise of Tina Belcher. You know what I mean?
You can finance it for 1,200 months or until the heat death of the universe.
1,200 months. Okay, but the funnier thing is when I was on the website researching it, trying to get some more information, when they mention the horsepower and torque figures, they use a term that I don't think I've ever heard before, in which it says up to 190 horsepower.
Now, we're used to EVs that have a boost mode. Is that what we're looking at here?
No, I don't think so. I think it gives you the 190. And again, I think from a perception.
Oh, I think I might know what it is, Sammy.
What is it?
Premium fuel.
I looked into this. It didn't look like it does need premium fuel. So,
but it will probably run. It probably has an 87 map, right?
I guess so. That's the best way I would describe it.
Very strange.
There was another thing I want to talk about the powertrain before I get into the other parts of the car. It's supposed to average 20 7 miles per gallon.
Okay.
I'm not getting exactly that. I'm using a little bit more fuel than I'd like. Let me double check.
Did I have that same problem in the HRV recently?
Maybe.
Where it just wasn't like, it didn't feel like the suffering translated into like a gain. Didn't feel like the translated into like that's cheap at the fuel pump.
No, I'm getting about 24 miles per gallon, which is not good.
Yeah. No, for something that size.
Yeah, but I have been playing around with it with the sport mode, so maybe that has something to do with it. And I do spend a little bit more time in the city, but I did find my fuel economy actually going down in the city than on the highway. So maybe I was just going too quick for its fuel efficiency usage.
Maybe.
I'm going to say one of the major things that I have a problem with is the infotainment system, not because it's like bad, but I think for a car that costs 55 grand or 45,000 in the US, the screen is kind of small. Is that like a weird, like it just is noticeably a small screen. I'm going to tell you how big it is. It is a whopping 9 inches.
Okay. I can't picture that. I don't know what something that's 9 inches long looks like.
Okay. And has a significant bezel. Android Auto looks really like squashed in there. At least there's wireless Android Auto. There's wired Apple CarPlay. I think.
Wait, wireless Android Auto and wired Apple CarPlay?
Yeah.
That seems strange to me.
I'm not sure why that is. That's what the. I
believe you. It just seems odd.
And I do think that the screen system is actually really like responsive. It just doesn't look really high res or really high quality. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think we've been maybe spoiled. Again, I drove the Q3 recently. It hasn't been that long since I've been in an X3, which is a similar class. I have seen these screens and these infotainment systems on other cars looking far more impressive.
I think X3 is much bigger.
Sorry, X2. X1, X2.
Yeah.
And another thing I want to point out is that while it boasts a Bang & Olufsen sound system with 15 speakers, I cannot possibly tell you that this is a good sounding sound system. It sounds like every other car I've been in. It's totally fine.
Now,
not a reason to buy one.
I want to throw a wild card at you.
Hit me.
Mini Countryman.
A car with personality. Are you really trying to catch me off guard by giving me a car with personality?
Car with personality, but also a car that has some particular quirks that not everyone might like. And my question is the of the ADX worse than the giant center screen in the Countryman?
Yes, I would take the giant center screen because I find that to be more of a conversational, like a little piece that reminds you in a positive light that you're in a Mini, which is a unique vehicle, a unique brand, and is full of like charm and quirk, as opposed to the
I feel pricing is probably similar too.
Of the ADX, which feels like a compromise. This is not like when you've driven if you've driven an RDX, if you've driven an Integra, they don't make those noises. Do you know what I mean? They feel like fun.
I thought you just told me this was the same as the Integra.
Kind of, yeah. But I don't remember the Integra. I mean, I've driven what is it called? A-Spec with the manual.
It's good.
And the Type S with the manual.
They're both good.
Excellent cars.
Good cars.
Right?
Yes.
So, and I've driven the manual, the CVT equipped hybrid Civics, which are, I think, standouts. But they don't sound like this at all.
No, it's really odd to me because I agree that this is like the one area where Honda cannot get its CV tuning seemingly right for the experience the vehicle should be offering. And they're able to do it everywhere else. And then you come here, and I really thought that the turbo engine would fix everything for this car because that was my complaint about the HRV, right?
It's almost there, but it's just the sound of that CVT is not great. You've got to have music playing or something.
Was it that I wanted the turbo, or was it that I wanted the hybrid version?
I think the hybrid would be better. I think the hybrid is significantly more impactful because the hybrid in the Civic, when it comes to the Civic, the hybrid provides the power of the turbo 1.5 with the fuel economy of a hybrid. Like, and it just is two things that come together really nicely. I guess that's the ethos behind the Prelude, which everyone's been talking a lot about.
I don't want to get into the Prelude.
Okay.
I think it's for another day.
When we actually get to test drive it.
Yeah.
Okay. So my overall impression is that they've done a decent job of translating the design language, Acura's design language, into a smaller package. And the performance of the 1.5T is adequate, but the transmission and the fuel economy and the infotainment system all need to be improved a little bit in order for this to be a true contender in this class, especially at the top edge of the price range, which is $45,000 US or 55 in Canada. Any questions you have about it? Any more questions about it? Would you prefer me to recommend something else?
I mean, sounds like you want to recommend something else.
No, I don't. I think the Mini Countryman's a great recommendation.
Okay. I'm okay with the Countryman. I'm neither positive nor negative on it. It's there. It exists. It has unusual styling. I'm not a big fan of that center screen. But yeah, from everything that you've described, I did not enjoy the driving experience of the HR-V, and it doesn't sound like the ADX has really improved that much on it.
I want to talk about this like subcompact class, which like bugged me 10, maybe 12 years ago. There was I think there was a class of compact luxury cars, like the Mercedes CLA in the A class, the BMW 2 Series Grand Coupe, which is a relatively new one. But there was also the Audi A3. And then they took those. First of all, I thought those ones were going to water down the premium car, market branding that those automakers had. And then they took those and made it even more difficult with the crossover versions of all those cars. And now we're like in this area where you're spending lots of money on tiny compromised luxury cars, which can feel as capable and as, and feel super like a really bad bargain compared to a mainstream car, which can come with many of the same equipment.
But I think we're at the point where you're spending a lot of money on every car. And it's kind of highlighting the deficiencies of the luxury model. Everything has gotten more expensive. And so entry-level luxury feels like something you should skip.
Absolutely. That's what I'm trying to say. And I am struggling to find the real winners in the entry-level luxury class.
Yeah. I mean, how far away are we from like a Canadian $80,000 average transaction price? It sounds crazy to say, but it's risen, I think, 23% in the last 3 years in Canada. Oof. And that doesn't seem sustainable. Like, I don't know.
No, I agree with you.
Like how that keeps going.
What will save us?
Because inflation is all well and good, but wages have not risen with inflation. So when you start saying stuff like, oh, well, if you adjust for inflation, this car is the same amount as it would have cost in the 90s. That doesn't work because wages were higher relatively in the 90s compared to that purchase price. So like the growth isn't there on the earnings side. The growth is only on the expenses side.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's brutal.
It's completely brutal.
Everything else has gone up in price. I mean, housing pricing is out of this world. Grocery prices are super high. So it makes, if I was going to tell anybody to cut cost, it would be on the luxury crossover. Absolutely unnecessary.
And it's luxury in quotations a lot of the time. So.
Yeah. But I would tell you, if you had to pick between the HR-V and the ADX, you'd have to pick the ADX. Like there's...
Man. What a grim choice.
It is, exactly. That's the word, an awful choice. Anyways, that's all I got for this week's episode. Do you have anything else you want to talk about?
I do not.
Okay. So next week, I think I mentioned, I'm not test driving anything right now, but I'm very excited to talk to you about a number of cars that showed up at the Japanese mobility show and the SEMA auto show, which is always a weird and fun show that you and I have both covered in the past, but it's exciting to talk about sometimes how wild the concepts are.
And I am going to be talking about next week the Genesis GV70 Electrified, which has been refreshed for 2026 and which I've had a bit of an adventure with. I also want to say thank you to everyone who supported me on the Model UN Kickstarter, which ended this week, actually ended today. I'm recording this. So it means a lot. Sami got in there too. And we know how much he hates to read. So that's a big step for him. So thank you to everyone who took part in that. And I can't wait to get the books in your hands once Kickstarter sends me that cash. And I'll just click on the www.computer and it's going to be in your inbox.
We encourage other people to www and click on the things on the internet. Head on over to our website, unnamedautomotivepodcast.com. There's a contact form there. Fill it out. Send us your thoughts. Send us your questions. Send us your comments. Anything you feel like sending, you send it to us.
Within reason.
I'm over it now. Like, I'm willing to take anything now. Send it to us. We love hearing your thoughts. We love hearing your questions. We can't wait to talk about them on the next available podcast. Additionally, when you go to our website, you'll see photos of the cars that we've been driving. You'll see links to the stories we've written about the cars, and you'll see buttons to subscribe to our podcast using whatever podcast client you prefer to use. Additionally, you can just search for us on your podcatcher and we'll find you. You'll find us, actually.
Thank you for listening, everybody.
See you later.
Bye.